Hello learners, I welcome you all to the 13th lecture for the course on International Investment Law and the Environment. With this lecture, we have officially entered into the 4th week of the course. 4th week of the course is designed to talk about the investment protection standards that are given under a bilateral investment treaties or treaty with investment provisions. Until last week, we've been discussing about the historical context. The reason why I had emphasized on you knowing about the historical context is so that you can clearly see that the investment protection rules or international investment law principle was developed in the context of the fight between capital exporting countries, capital importing countries with regard to what sort of protection had to be given, what should be the compensation quantum, but not with regard to the condition of the environment or the protection of the environment. I really wanted to highlight that particular aspect because these historical circumstances did play a significant role in the evolution of international investment law principles. And what we are trying to do through this course is there a possibility of reconciling environmental principles in the context of international investment law, right? So very briefly, I thought we should discuss about the investment protection standards, which currently form the basis of the content of international investment agreements, and the provisions with regard to environment in a bilateral investment treaty or otherwise in an international investment agreement will be discussed in the 9th week of the course. The provision exclusively that talks about environmental protection. So what is being planned in the 4th week of the course is majority of your international investment agreement, that is either the bilateral investment treaty or treaty with investment provision, will talk about the obligations on the part of the host state to protect investors and investment. So what are those obligations? Because when an environmental regulatory measure is taken, the same is challenged by the investor by saying that this violates the investment protection standards mentioned in the BIT. So even when we discuss about the past decided cases in the 6th, 7th and 8th week of the course, so I'll be talking about this regulatory measure was challenged as a violation of expropriation provision or as a violation of fair and equitable treatment provision. So when I use those terms in those weeks, you should have an idea about what is an expropriation provision, what is a fair and equitable treatment provision, and what are the other provisions that are guaranteed to investors for their investment, right? So precisely for that reason, week 4 is envisaged. So we will have a very limited discussion on the investment protection standards. Having said this, without any further delay, let us go into the content of lecture number 13. So lecture number 13 talks about the practice of signing bilateral investment treaties. So in the last few videos, we discussed that how there were many reciprocal treaties that existed among European countries. Some of these reciprocal treaties also contained the provisions with regard to protection of investment as well, right? So something we had discussed. And since there was equal power play, equal economic status, almost equal economic status between the European countries, reciprocity alone was enough to ensure that the provisions of the treaties were followed and enforced. And then there were again the practice of signing FCN treaties by the United States, friendship, commerce and navigation treaties. So what the United States did was primarily the FCN treaties were something that looked at trade provisions. I mean, it contained provisions with regard to international trade, but there were some provisions that were there in FCN treaties that also protected foreign investment as well. So with the signing of a multilateral agreement for international trade, I'm talking about General Agreement on Trade and Tariff in 1947, what happened was United States sort of, did not focus much about signing FCNs. So that program was eventually wound on around 1960s as well, the practice of signing BITs. And then in the last few videos, we also discussed how international international organizations as well as international conferences were used by capital importing countries, and they started asserting their rights in these international organization and international conferences. We've seen discussed about few of the UN resolution, General Assembly resolution as well as Security Council resolution. So when that was happening, capital exporting countries did not stay quiet. So they also undertook certain measures in order to protect their interests, especially their nationals' interests who had invested in some other country. One such effort by Germany is signing of the first bilateral investment treaty with our own neighbor Pakistan. So Germany and Pakistan signed the very first bilateral investment treaty in 1959, and that came into force in 1962. This was not the only initiative that Germany was doing. There was this guy, German banker, Hermann Joseph Abs. So what he did was he proposed for a Magna Carta for the protection of foreign investment, and it was a very ambitious one because it contained a lot of protections for foreign investment. Since it was very ambitious, it was not received well. So then this guy, the German banker, along with the Briton jurist Shawcross, they came up with a very modest treaty talking about, sort of a multilateral agreement on investment. And there were many other proposals that were received as well. So some of the international organization also sponsored some of these efforts. Eventually, we see one attempt made by OECD in 1960. Actually, two attempts were made by OECD in 1960s. And both the attempts were not very successful because many countries did not agree to the fact that whatever was contained there was not only applicable on OECD countries but on all countries. So then the capital exporting country, capital importing country debate also happened here. So both the attempts by OECD for having a multilateral treaty on investment failed in 1960s. And what we see here is the Germany's practice of signing BITs in order to protect its nationals' interest with regard to the investment that they have made in some other country was followed by other European countries. So other European countries also started signing bilateral investment treaties with the host states in order to protect their citizens' investment made in the territory of the host state. So that they started doing it. So then we see in 1980, US also joined this practice of signing a bilateral investment treaty. By then, its FCN program also was wound down. So it also joined the wagon and started signing bilateral investment treaties. So it carefully identified the countries with which it didn't have the FCN treaty. Those are the countries it chose, and then it started signing bilateral investment treaties. Then India also joined this late. I think we've already discussed a little bit about all of these in the previous videos. India also joined this practice of signing bilateral investment treaties post liberalizing our economy in 1990s. So this started happening. Now what happened was in 1994 a major development happened, that was establishment of World Trade Organization. When World Trade Organization was established, then OECD thought maybe the time is ripe now for having a multilateral agreement on investment, and then started the negotiations for such an instrument. But we would be surprised to see that even US was not very enthusiastic about this agreement. France protested because it felt that its culture would be corrupted, and some NGOs protested against this initiative because they felt that investor rights were kept at a pedestal compared to that of labor standards or environmental standards. So because of these concerns, even the third attempt of OECD was unsuccessful. And do we have any multilateral agreement with regard to investment? Yes. In the context of World Trade Organization, we have TRIPS agreement, that is trade-related investment measures, which has a very limited scope. And this agreement is basically an elaborate version of Article 3 and Article 11, that is national treatment and quantitative restriction provision. So it sort of talks about domestic content requirement and all of that, but it is not a detailed agreement. Then also we have one other multilateral agreement, but this agreement is merely a procedural agreement which talks about resolution of investment disputes. In fact, in 1960s, right after signing of Pakistan and Germany BIT, there was this General Council of World Bank, Aaron Broches. So he came up with the vision that most of the contest that happens between capital exporting countries and capital importing countries are with regard to the substantive issues, and clearly the dispute resolution in case of an investment dispute is very politicized, because you have to go and seek the support of your home state, right? As an investor has to go and seek the support of the home state to espouse the cause of the investor. So it was highly political in nature. So World Bank came up with a convention for the settlement of investment disputes between states and nationals of other states. So this convention is popularly known as ICSID Convention. The reason being, it establishes International Center for Settlement of Investment Dispute. So ICSID was established the convention was adopted in 1965. ICSID was established pursuant to this. But even in the 1960s itself, ICSID was there. We don't see it to be very active or popular until 1990s. But once the practice of signing treaties, many bilateral investment treaties started getting signed, especially among developing country. Right, earlier at least the flow of FDI was unilateral. It came from capital exporting country to capital importing country. But today in 2025, we can't say that it's going to be unilateral, because there are certain startups in US which are actually bought by Indian investors as well. So in those cases, the flow is not just unilateral. So you cannot strictly categorize a country to be capital exporting or capital importing. At least with regard to one particular sector, it may be capital importing, but with regard to other sectors, it may be capital exporting. So there cannot be any strict classification as of that now. And what we see here is there are a multitude of bilateral investment treaties and treaty with investment provisions. Over 3,000 plus international investment agreements have been signed. So with that, the number of investment disputes also is only increasing. So there is a growing need for settlement of these investment disputes without politically getting involved, right? So without unnecessarily getting politicized. So therefore, ICSID offered a better opportunity for resolving the investment disputes. Ever since AAPL versus Sri Lanka, we do see there are many cases filed in ICSID. So ICSID has somewhat become a very popular method. But for countries which are not signatories to ICSID, then unsettled arbitration rules have been heavily relied on. That is something that we'll discuss when we are talking about ISDS at the end of this particular week. But please note that there's a multilateral agreement with regard to investment, but this is a procedural agreement, and that is the ICSID Convention, right? So these are the developments that had taken place. Now we see the practice of signing bilateral investment treaty is absolutely there. And there are also research which says that just because a country had signed a bilateral investment treaty, that does not automatically guarantee that there is inflow of FDI. The multitude of research examining the link between the practice of signing BITs and the flow of FDI, that is not clearly established. However, the preliminary presumption is that if a country signs a bilateral investment treaties and offers protection to the investor, then it may attract the inflow of foreign direct investment into the country. With that, we'll conclude our lecture number 13. So I think this is a very brief and a crisp introduction to the practice of signing bilateral investment treaties and how there are many instruments that are being signed. From the next lecture onwards, we will look at the particular protection standards that are guaranteed to the investors. So in the very next lecture, we will look at the protection against expropriation, because that is one provision that you will find in almost all the international investment agreements. So we'll pick up our discussion with regard to these investment protection standards from the next lecture onwards. Thank you.